What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Purple and Gold podcast. This is Mock Draft 4.0, and it is my final one before the 2022 NFL Draft, which is really less than 2 days away from this point. So I'm really excited to get into this one. I don't know how accurate this is going to be, once the draft unfolds, because really the first overall pick is a huge question mark right now. But the direction that I'm going to take this one is I'm going to go and select Travon Walker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's a little bit of a dispute going on right now because Trent Baalke wants Travon Walker, uh, but then Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, is calling for Aiden Hutchinson. And I just have a feeling that Khan is going to back down a little bit and let Baalke do the job that he hired him to do. So I don't know. It could really go either way, but this could change the way that the draft unfolds the rest of the way out. I'm just going to go with Travon Walker here, and the betting odds also have put Walker as the favorite now to be the number one overall pick. So I don't know if that means anything. I'm just blabbering stuff now, so we'll move on. This is an easy pick if this is the case. Aiden Hutchinson to the Detroit Lions. He's going to stay in Michigan and be a franchise edge rusher. I don't really know why this isn't the clear-cut overall pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I mean, we're not running the organization, I guess. Alrighty, number 3 now. I was considering bringing in another one of the defensive guys, but I'm going to bring in Ikem Ekwonu. This is a team that has needed offensive line help, and I think you're going to get it in a ton of ways, however you want it to be with Ikem Ekwonu. Whether you want him to play guard or tackle, he is phenomenal at both of the positions. So really just securing any of that spot of the offensive line, him bringing that versatility, and I think he has the highest ceiling, of all the players in this year's draft class. So I'm really excited to see what Ikem does, once he's finally in the league. For the New York Jets, this one right here, I'm going to go with Ahmad Gardner right here. There has been news that has come out that, that is one of the guys that they're very high on, and understandably so. I really wouldn't be surprised if Gardner, goes right here to the Jets at 4. I don't think they want to wait till their next pick at 10. Because I don't think he makes it that far. So I think that this would be a smart pick right here. I think the last time we saw a corner go this high, I think it was Jeff Okudah to the Lions. I think that Gardner is tremendously better. A few years before that, it was Denzel Ward. So you see what the potential is and what the downside is to taking a corner that high in the draft. But I think Ahmad Gardner is well deserving of being a top 5 pick in this year's draft. For the New York Giants, this is going to be another offensive lineman with a ton of versatility. Can play pretty much all the positions along the offensive line. So Evan Neal, now myself, I'm not very high on him, but I'm just going to go with what I think the team is going to pick, not who I would pick. So Evan Neal right here, this definitely fills a need. And similar to the Texans, whether you need him to play guard or tackle, this is a guy who's going to play for you day one. He's going to be an instant impact starter. This would be a great pick for the Giants here. For the Carolina Panthers now, they said that there are multiple quarterbacks that they are comfortable taking with at the number 6 overall pick. I do not see any of the other teams in the league trading up before Carolina to snag their quarterback. So I think that Carolina is going to get first dibs at whoever they want. And I think Kenny Pickett is attached to the word pro ready in this year's quarterback draft class. So Kenny Pickett being the most pro ready quarterback, I think he's going to go to Carolina, and I think he's going to beat Sam Darnold for that starting job. Obviously, hearing that interview with McAdoo, they're not really sold that Darnold's going to be the clear-cut starter. He had to take back his words, he said. So I think that means that some competition is going to be in the building, and I think that's going to be Kenny Pickett. I don't know. Them taking a quarterback wouldn't shock me at all. If they went in a different direction, let's just say tackle, that wouldn't surprise me as well. Giants here at 7. I think this is a huge opportunity for them to trade back. But I'm not gonna do too much shifting here in this draft. So we're going to stick and pick like we have in all of our other mock drafts. I'm going to go here and take Kayvon Thibodeau. I think this is just too much value for the Giants to pass up on. This is a guy that could potentially be a number 1 pick in previous drafts here. He's going to fall to them at 7. He has said some questionable things. throughout this draft process, and I think that's why his stock is falling a little bit, just because of character issues. Some people don't see it as an issue at all, but there has been a little bit of rumors around the league that there are some teams who are just not really sold on him because of that. There is a person, or they are people at the end of the day, so we can't forget that. Um, but Kayvon Thibodeau, I think, falls to 7. And look, if we're gonna just talk about football players and guys who are just gonna be productive, I think you can really bank on Kayvon Thibodeau to be that franchise edge rusher that they so desperately need. They already have a promising player in Azeez Ojulari on one side, so I would like this pick here to solidify the edges for the Giants. Here for the Atlanta Falcons, now they signed Marcus Mariota to a 2-year deal, so I'm thinking that right now they're going to just build, around for the rest of the team and then have Mariota play out this entire year. Next year, though, is when Mariota really becomes the bridge quarterback, and then they draft a quarterback in next year's draft. So I think that's why they signed him to a multiple year deal. And I think right here they're going to go out and take Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of buzz surrounding this guy, and it seems like he's going to be the number one receiver taken off the board. Had Jameson Williams not tore his ACL in his final game at Alabama, I think that there would be a debate on who's taken as the first wide receiver. But because Wilson is coming off of the season healthy and just has really good tape when it comes to his route running, his ability to adjust to the ball midair, and just his run after the catch, this is one of the most complete players in the entire draft. I don't have him as my number one receiver because I really like the explosiveness that Jameson Williams brings to his game, and his route running ability as well. I think that it's a really close comparison with these two guys, but because Wilson is healthier and the Falcons desperately need a wide receiver at the moment, I think Garrett Wilson makes a ton of sense here. For the Seattle Seahawks now, this is going to be a quick pick for me. I'm going to say Charles Cross. Before I had them taking a quarterback here, but I think that if there's any chance that they take a quarterback, they're going to trade up for them in the late first round with the multiple second round picks that they have. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to use both of the second round picks to trade up. It's possible, but they have the ammunition to trade up if they need to, if they want to, if they have their quarterback there later in the draft. Right now, you pick up a franchise tackle in Charles Cross here at number 9. I think this makes a ton of sense. Ironically, we're going to build the line once Russell Wilson is gone. But I think, if your quarterback's going to be Drew Lock and you're not planning to take a quarterback later, a guy who's maybe not as mobile, I think it's going to make sense because you're going to have to give your pocket quarterback a lot of time to throw. We're getting a little off topic there. So the Jets right here at number 10, I'm going to go and give them Jermaine Johnson. I think that they need an edge rusher. Now, edge is definitely not a huge priority on this team, but it is a very, very deep edge rusher class, and the top of the board in terms of talent for this group right here is just, I mean, I haven't seen anything like it in the recent drafts that we've seen. It's just very top heavy. We talk about Hutchinson, we talk about Walker, we talk about Johnson. I'm still missing some other guys, that are going to go in the later rounds. Arnold Ebiketie, Boye Mafe, the list goes on. Bottom line is there's a lot of guys that are going to go in the first round at the edge rusher position, but this is one of the top tier talents in this year's draft. Here, Florida State's Jermaine Johnson, who has had one hell of a draft process and is definitely deserving of being a top 10 pick. Here for the Washington football team, I'm going to go ahead and give them Jameson Williams now. I just feel like it would be a Washington thing to do to get a hurt player, have him come back and play on one of the most injury-plagued fields. I don't even know if I use that term correctly, but I don't know, because Wentz is made out of glass, Williams is coming off of an injury, you're playing on Washington's field. I don't know. I just feel like this is just a match made in heaven. But also, again, I think that they also really need another wide receiver. Yes, you did sign Curtis Samuel, but he is purely a slot receiver. You have McLaurin on the outside, so you need that other dominant outside receiver to create some mismatches with the opposing team's number 2 corner. And I think Jameson Williams would be a huge threat and a huge addition to this Washington offense. And I think it would greatly benefit Carson Wentz as well. And Carson Wentz really didn't have a wide receiver 2 in his time in Indianapolis. So I think that Jameson Williams could definitely elevate Carson Wentz's game. For the Vikings, this would be an ideal scenario, and maybe I set it up so that it would end up this way. But if Derek Stingley can land in Minnesota, I think that this would just be phenomenal because this is the number 1 need for the team, and if you can get a player at his caliber as well, obviously huge question marks on whether or not he can stay on the field, but I would be so excited to have Derek Stingley on the Vikings. So we'll see how that goes. Fills a need and is great value. I mean, Stingley could potentially go in the top 5. That wouldn't even shock me. Here for the Texans, I'm going to give them Kyle Hamilton. This is a guy who I think also could go in the top 10, but if he's sitting here at 13, you can't pass up on him. So I think this makes a ton of sense. So for the Texans, right, you go out and get Ikem Ekwonu and then Kyle Hamilton. I would love the way that this draft is unfolding if I'm a Texans fan. Here for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this is one that I was a little stuck on and I was a little unsure of who I wanted to take, but I just went back to what I've been doing this entire time. I'm going to give him Devin Lloyd. I think him and Patrick Queen would make a phenomenal duo in the middle of the defense right here. And just his sideline to sideline speed, I think, is something that can't be ignored, really. So the Ravens are always in a position to just get good players time after time. And I think Devin Lloyd is another case where I think some people would make the argument that, hey, maybe Devin Lloyd should be a top 10 pick. We've seen guys like Roquan Smith, Devin White taken that early in the draft. Why not Devin Lloyd? So if he's sitting here at 14, it wouldn't shock me the slightest to see him go here to the Ravens, who I think could use a second linebacker in their 3-4 defense. Now, for the Philadelphia Eagles, I was trying to decide what position I wanted to go for first, but here, look, there's been a lot of hype surrounding Drake London recently, and I just can't imagine him falling any further than this. So here at 15, they're going to take Drake London. They need another wide receiver. Obviously, Devontae Smith has proven that he can be highly productive. Quez Watkins is a promising guy, but he's not promising you anything, though, at the wide receiver 2 spot. So I think Drake London is a guy who can come in, start immediately, and can be a huge help for Jalen Hurts. I mean, you just get a big body receiver on the outside who you can just throw it up to, and you can count on to make the catch. Drake London is that guy. I'm really interested to see what he's going to do in the NFL, but I think that this would be a huge compliment to the Eagles' offense. And a big reason why I took a wide receiver is because the Saints follow them right after, and this is going to happen 2 times in the draft. You can see it coming up pretty soon at 18, 19. So there is that chance that the Saints do take a wide receiver after this, and I think that the Eagles want their first choice. So that's why they're going to take them at 15, whoever it is, whether it's Drake London or not. Here at 16, though, I think they have to go out and get a tackle. You know, it's not going to be easy to replace Teron Armstead, but they're going to have to do it in some form, and Trevor Penning, I think, would be the right pick here. You can't wait till 19 because there is a very good chance that the Chargers go out and take Penning here at 17. So I wouldn't be willing to take that risk. So I think that they're in a good spot right here. And they're taking Trevor Penning at a relatively good spot in the draft. I'm personally not so high on him, but it seems like, you know, some of the scouts are that we've heard opinions from, Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. So you know, I'm just trying to gauge what I think is going to happen based on what, you know, those big media guys are saying on NFL Network, ESPN, all the sources. So right here for the Chargers. Now, although they don't need him, look, this is a dog. No pun intended because he played for Georgia. But seriously, Jordan Davis is a freak athlete. And look, this was one of the worst run. This actually was the worst run defense in all of the league last year. And even though you picked up a Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, look, would it really hurt to bring in Jordan Davis? Not at all. So look, if you want to get a problem solved, okay, Jordan Davis is the answer to all of your problems in the run game. So look, this is a team that I think still needs a tackle. They could definitely go for a guard because the right side of their offensive line is a little suspect at the moment. But look, like I've mentioned, Jordan Davis is a freak athlete. I don't think I need to say it. I think we've all seen it at this point. I think this pick would make a ton of sense. And it's a case of where you look at the board and you just take the best player available. So I think that's the way to go. For the Eagles now, they could definitely use another cornerback. So I'm going to give them Trent McDuffie out of Washington. I don't think anything more needs to be said. I think that they are very thin in terms of depth at both of the skill positions in wide receiver and cornerback. And you get a good selection of guys right here sitting there at 15 and 18. So no complaints here. You get two big playmakers on both sides of the team. For the Saints now sitting here at 19, they're going to go out and choose their receiver now, which I believe is going to be Chris Olave, the other Ohio State receiver. This is a guy who I think also, shows a similar, it's not as good as Garrett Wilson, obviously, which is why I think he's going to go later. But I think he's definitely going to get the job done. I think he's going to be a solid receiver in this league. I don't know if I can see a pure wide receiver one, but definitely a guy who's hovering around maybe, I think his ceiling is around maybe like a top 15 receiver, maybe like a Keenan Allen type of deal, where it's like we're always talking about how they're underrated, but they're never like that guy. So if that makes any sense to you at all, but look, he doesn't need to be anything more than that if you continue to have Michael Thomas on your team. So I wouldn't really be concerned about that. I think that this would be a great pick here for the New Orleans Saints. Look, we're going to make this quick and easy. Malik Willis, they need a quarterback. Mitch Trubisky is not your future. Malik Willis, if he's not ready, sit him under Trubisky for a year, and you'll be competitive the year after. We'll see. For the Patriots now, this is another team that needs a cornerback, so I'm going to give them Andrew Booth right here. I think right now the two starting cornerbacks is Jalen Mills and Malcolm Butler. So I wouldn't be very optimistic about that. So if Andrew Booth is sitting there, I would be celebrating. And Belichick doesn't celebrate and smile very much, but I think this would be a scenario where he might smirk just a little bit. Here for the Packers at 22. What did I want to do for them? I wanted to grab an offensive lineman. Look, Elton Jenkins has the versatility to play tackle. So look, if you can put him at right tackle and you have Bakhtiari at left, I mean, that kind of helps you in this situation, just considering that there is no tackle, I think, in this position that's really worth taking in the first round. So if we can attack that interior of the line, and I'm going to give him Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M right here. I think that he's the best guard in this year's draft. I don't know if they take him. Maybe it's Zion Johnson, but Green Bay, Kenyon Green, sure, why not? It makes literally no sense, but I'm going to do it anyway. The Arizona Cardinals right here. Every year in the draft, okay, there's always some guy in the first round that everyone's like, what? He really just went in the first round? And it's not because the guy isn't talented, but it's like, maybe we haven't heard the name a lot being thrown around in mock drafts here and there, or they just really weren't considered a first round pick, but this team has him listed as one. I think that's going to be Kyler Gordon. I think that they like what they have right now in Byron Murphy and say, hey, look, this is another quality cornerback coming out of Washington, right where we got Byron Murphy from. I think Kyler Gordon can be a good prospect. Look, I like Kyler Gordon myself, not necessarily as a first-round talent, but like I said, there's always a curveball in the draft, and I think it's going to be right here with the Arizona Cardinals. For the Dallas Cowboys now, I think that this is another team that I think doesn't necessarily have a bunch of players that would fill needs. Now, Daxton Hill, I think, could do it, but I don't really see him as a Cowboy. I think Devontae Wyatt just has that aggressiveness, not in a bad way. Now, obviously, the Cowboys players sometimes do have that characteristic of being a little too aggressive on and off the field, but I think Devontae Wyatt is that good medium where it's like, again, I don't want to use this as a pun, no pun intended, okay? But this guy is also a dog. I mean, him and Jordan Davis were a very elite duo on the defensive line, and I think Devontae Wyatt would be a great addition because it's going to bring more pressure this time from the interior of the line. Dante Fowler is their other edge rusher because he has his connections to Dan Quinn, but he hasn't been all that productive. So if you can try and get it out of someone else on a cheap contract and he's going to be able to plug in and play immediately, I think Devontae Wyatt is definitely a guy that you can lean on for that responsibility. Here for the Buffalo Bills, I really wanted to get them a cornerback, but there is none at the moment. So look, Zion Johnson is arguably the best player on the board right now, and this also fills a need. So when we look at value, right? I mean, this guy is going to be good. Zion Johnson is going to be an absolute beast. It's hard to move this guy once the play starts. And it also fills a need. So I would be very excited if I was a Buffalo Bills fan to get Zion Johnson here at 25 because the offensive line did have its struggles at times last year. So you got to protect Josh Allen, give him time to throw the ball, and let him sling it 70 yards down the field like he normally does. Here for the Titans now, I think Treylon Burks fits the mold of what they like at wide receiver. They need another guy. And look, I think the best type of receiver right now for Ryan Tannehill is a guy who can catch the ball at a relatively short distance, 10 yards or under, and just make an explosive play after that. Somebody who can provide the run after the catch. Now, some of you guys may be saying, hey, that's literally Deebo Samuel. Why don't they just trade for him? Yeah, they could, but do you really want to pay Deebo Samuel and A.J. Brown in the same year? I'd rather not, and I would take the cheaper option, an option with the same, if not more potential in Treylon Burks, who provides a similar build, a similar skill set. I would love to see Treylon Burks in a Tennessee Titans uniform. Here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this might be one of the worst, this might be one of the worst situations that you could possibly be in because you're looking at the board and it's like, none of these guys would really start. Like, where would they play? So if there's anyone who's going to get into the rotation, I think it's going to be a wide receiver. So I'm going to give him Jahan Dotson here out of Penn State. I think he adds an element to that wide receiver group that they don't currently have right now, which is just speed. Because I think Godwin and Evans just have very reliable hands. Evans is supposed to be your 50-50 guy. Godwin's the guy who's kind of just tearing it up over the middle, right? If you want a guy who's going to stretch the field, I don't think they necessarily have that yet. I think Jahan Dotson would be a great addition. And then also you're going to have Russell Gage, who's going to be thrown in the mix as well. So why not give Brady more options? You know he's going to make great use of it. Here for the Packers, I'm going to shake it up a little bit again. We're going to give him George Pickens here out of Green Bay. And some of you guys might be saying, hey, that's not really shaking it up. But George Pickens isn't really a guy that I've seen consistently in the first round of mock drafts. But I think this is definitely the guy that can sneak in. I think that he just has a very large frame. He's already had comparisons to AJ Green, who is very good in his prime. Had an underrated season last year, in my opinion. I think that he was pretty productive considering that most people thought he was washed, including myself after that, horrific year in Cincinnati. So I think George Pickens would be the choice here for the Green Bay Packers. They like their long receivers, so George Pickens, I like that right there. For the Chiefs right here, I'm going to go out and I'm going to give them George Karlaftis out of Purdue. There are some very intriguing options. Look, if Mafe, Ojabo, or Ebiketie is the option here at 29, I would not be the slightest bit surprised. But I'm just going to give him Karlaftis here. I think his bull rushing ability is something that most tackles probably don't want to go up against because it would be pretty embarrassing to be pushed up against your own quarterback. I think guys like Mafe and Ebiketie are going to take a couple years to progress and kind of mold them into the defense and get them at the playing speed that you want them to be at. I think Karlaftis you can plug in and play day one, and I think you will be pretty satisfied with the type of production you're going to get out of him. Ojabo, obviously, I didn't mention because of that injury that he's facing right now, which is so unfortunate because I think he had the potential to be a top 10 player in this draft had he not gotten hurt, but that's a story for another time. This is, again, another team that needs a wide receiver. I'm going to give him Skye Moore out of Western Michigan. Steve Smith Sr. said that he sees a lot of himself in Skye Moore. So, if these teams really believe that comparison that he made himself to himself, I think a lot of people would love to have a Steve Smith on their team. But Skye Moore, look, I mean, they need a wide receiver, and I think that this is another guy who could sneak his way into the first round. If it happens, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. Another guy who I think could sneak into the first round, Tyler Smith, the guard out of Tulsa. He also has tackle flexibility, but look, it was very clear that the Bengals need to rework that offensive line. I think that they've done a great job so far in free agency in doing that. But Tyler Smith would, I think, just be the cherry on top for Joe Burrow and this offensive line. And with our final pick here with the Detroit Lions, I'm going to give him a quarterback. And look, this is a guy that I think has just been heavily disrespected throughout this entire draft process. I can't even believe that I'm putting him here, but it just doesn't sound like he's going to go that high in this year's draft, and I completely disagree with that. But Matt Corral here for the Lions, I think that they're going to use that pick that they got in the Matthew Stafford trade to get their new future franchise quarterback. And look, if they are able to pick up Matt Corral here at 32, I think that that would just be tremendous value. So let me know what you guys think about Mock Draft 4.0 in the comment section below. We'll see how many I get right. It's typically not a lot, and that's the case for most of us making these mock drafts, but it's always fun. This is going to be the last mock draft until the 2023 draft comes around, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this draft season with me. I certainly enjoyed making these videos, so until next time, it's the Purple and Gold Podcast, and I will see you all later. Peace.